welcome to the Vector Accelerator podcast, where we delve into the profound journey of veterans navigating the transition from military service to civilian life. Join us as we explore the challenges faced and the critical questions for clarity in identity, purpose, and community beyond the uniform. I'm your co-host, Michael Halterman. My friends call me Halty, and I hope you will too. I'm joined today by our co-host, Joe Lara. Say hello, Joe.
Hello again. How's it going?
Today we have a very special guest, Kathleen Cox. We like to call her Kat. Welcome, Kat. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for the introduction.
A little bit about Kat. She is a lieutenant commander with the United States Navy SEAL Teams, and the VP of Customer Experience at Carrington. And thankfully, she's spending some time with us today because she also happens to have done a little bit of transition work. And so that's what we'll talk about. And as a way to ease into that, our exercise, as we always do, is what is a pivotal moment in your past that was really instrumental to where you are today. And so to build you a little bit of time, Kat, to think about that, Joe, I'm going to kick it over to you first.
Yeah, thanks, Halty. Man, so this is part of that self-reflection part that we really want all veterans to do. And so obviously I've done this a bit. And I was thinking about, where I am today and what I love to do, which is in the development side of things. So developing people, developing teams. And so I started thinking and reflecting, where does that come from? And I remember being assigned to a Navy ship as an E5 and sitting my position, doing my job, focused, hyper-focused. And my boss at the time, the chief, his name is Tony, and who's a mentor, became a mentor of mine and still is today. He said, Petty Officer Lara, stand up, and pointed at the back room and said, all those junior people, you need to teach them. And I was like, wait, what? It was like computing for the first time the whole notion of development, of what that looks like, what that means, like, what do I need to do? And it meant I need to push away from the thing that I really enjoy doing, which is my job, and focus on others. So it was the first learning moment where I realized it's not just about me, it's about other people. So yeah, that's kind of where my mind went to with that one.
Mm-hmm. Kat, that's a good one, think? Joe. Yeah. Go ahead, Kat.
Tough act to follow. Here I go. I think much along the lines of what you just said, Joe, everything to move forward, to make progress, you always have to look backwards, right? We do this in the military. It's just second nature. For me, my most pivotal moment I can remember is with my husband, Josh, sitting in his truck after work one day. We're both military, sitting in our uniforms, and we're on a conference call with his nephew at the time and his mom and one of the teachers at his old school. And these teenagers that are my husband's niece and nephew, they were having a rough time in Arkansas. And we had been through a couple teacher conferences and discussions. And it just became clear sitting on that one call that we had an opportunity to expand the love in our family and to take a really big risk in our life. And we decided in that truck call to adopt his niece and nephew and move them out from Arkansas. And I think that's a unique personal experience that I have. But what I learned from that, I put into every pivotal decision that I have going forward. And I think what I learned is that greatest risk gives you the greatest reward, right? And when I look back on that pivotal decision and how it has changed everything, the way that I look at life, the way that I try to seek impact and purpose, and really how it contributed to my transition and me being happy and successful, is that where you feel like you're pushing yourself the most outside of your comfort zone, as long as you are taking care of the people that you love, that depend on you, and not hurting anybody, it's worth the risk. And if you turn down an opportunity to do something like that, just because it's outside your comfort zone, that's something that I think you would regret greatly in life. And it applies to military transitions so well, because if you ask any veteran getting out of the military, there's always anxiety involved in that process, whether you're willing to admit it or not, right?
Right.
And you get thrown a lot of opportunities and curveballs, and I see a lot of veterans turning those opportunities down, maybe because they're just not sure where they want to go, or it's so outside their comfort zone, they don't know if it's going to turn out to be a good decision for them. And I go back to, every time I'm at that decision point, I go back and I say, am I hurting anybody that I care about, or do I have the opportunity to help people? And if you're not hurting anyone and there's opportunity there, it's worth the risk. And you just got to take that pivotal moment and take that opportunity and put your best effort forward.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I guess quickly for me, it would be the most. It isn't a pinpoint moment. It was a time period, and it was a transition. It was going from being a Marine infantryman to being in special operations, because those are wildly different in so many ways. And the way that was most acutely, that I was most acutely aware of very quickly, was the way that I would have to change my leadership style almost completely, because the Marine infantry. So I was an infantryman, and then I went to the school of infantry to be an instructor. And so those leadership styles do not apply in many ways, because they're very loud. There's a lot of knife hands. There's a lot of those things.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, right?
Not that there's anything, but that's the right place, right? That is the context and space to do that. And then I showed up at special operations, and it was much more subtle. It was more about how well you can articulate your position and move people through recommendation and through different levers, right? And so I use that now as like, wait a second, I have transitioned once or twice before. That was one of those transitions. That one was really important, and it was my ability to adapt in that moment and realize my new context, my new surrounding, and being able to not change who I was. My character needed to remain the same, but the tactics, techniques, procedures I used needed to adapt to the environment. Yeah.
I love that that response, Halty. And the question is really good. I mean, it's so fitting for today's conversation, which the context is about your backstory. And I think as veterans consider moving forward, and Kat, think about, when you were active duty, thinking about the next chapter, and you're talking to your husband about the next chapter, and as he's probably right now navigating the next chapter, all these conversations are occurring, right? Intuitively, you're like, okay, what's next? How do we move forward? But this portion and this notion of backstory, and why I love this question so much, Halty, about a pivotal moment in your past. We found, with working with hundreds of veterans, to get clear on moving forward, you need to look back. And in looking back, I heard from both you, Kat, and from you, Halty, just moments of clarity, moments of maybe your strengths, what the best version of you coming forward, and then figuring out, okay, this is the best version of me, whether it's caring for others, Kat, really providing opportunity for others, or Halty, just blowing your leadership style and how to lead in different environments and maybe be adaptable to whatever those things are. Where can you do that moving forward in the next chapter? I think that's really important to be reflective, to see the lessons learned and then how they can land well moving in your next career or opportunity. And so that's really when we want to focus these next series of questions. And so, Kat, get ready, because here they come. The first one is about military transition support. And so we are really big on building a network, a community of people, trusted advisors. And so if you think about your transition and your separation from service, and actually you're still in the military. I mean, you are serving as a military person, protecting our freedoms and all this, and working at the same time and managing a family. Who are the people, or is there a person in your life that you feel has played a significant role as you figured out how to navigate this? Like who comes to mind, and what are some of the insights of these individuals that have impacted you significantly in your transition?
Yeah, I think it would be easy for me to find one person to highlight, but it would be cheating everybody else of being mentioned. So what I will say is it's very obvious to me, especially every day now, that it takes a village. It's not going to be one person, and it's really about seizing opportunity and not saying no to an opportunity to speak with someone and to get someone's feedback. And I think that it falls into many categories for me. If I'm going to be more general here, is you've got your friends and family, the people who know you inside and out on a daily basis, who know the struggles that you've overcome and where your weaknesses lie on an intimate level. And those people, they push you to greatness. They push you outside your comfort zone. They're the sounding board that you have, that they understand your background. They understand what makes you tick, what triggers you, all of that stuff. So it's really great to have that. Obviously, I have my husband, who I conversate daily with and look for mentorship from, and then all of my family members and my close friends. But then you also have a whole nother category, which I think is the blessing that comes with this kind of program, is that you have mentors outside of friends and family, right? People who challenge you to to look at things a different way than you're used to. People that really bring you humility with their stories and can make you think outside the box. That's kind of cliche, but that's really when you're reaching out to somebody for the first time, you're having a cup of coffee with someone and you're hearing about their experiences and how far they've come. The importance there is that you're not trying to be them. You don't want to be a carbon copy, but the more tools that you can put in your toolbox, the more you're going to be able to handle the next obstacle and barrier that you encounter. So I think that mentorship and even expanding what you think is possible, because you learn about other people's stories and what they've been able to achieve, and then you apply what you can to your own story as you go forward. And then another element of that is finding the folks as you transition who are in executive positions and who have made huge leadership steps for corporate organizations or nonprofit organizations, and learning about how they have trust and buy-in in the veteran community, because that's going to be a critical piece for you to understand your value to an organization, but also to know that the organization that you're attaching yourself to also sees value in your skill set and your experiences, because that's a huge piece, right? You have to have trust and buy-in from all three of these mentors, family and friends, and from executives and people that lead organizations that you're going to try to be a part of. And I think all three of those, I mean, the list is very long of people that I think have helped me transition, and it continues to grow. But that's an amazing element of this transition that I hope that every veteran can experience.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have quite a few mentors and people who have influenced you based on that great answer and sharing your experience. Is there a way that you've reached out, or a method by which you've used to reach out to find other mentors as you're looking at different phases of your life? And what are the methods you've used that you found to be the best?
So I think that especially today, right, you've got lots of apps you can go on, you can go search the interwebs. I still think that the best way is word of mouth, having face-to-face conversations with people and letting them hear where you're at, and then having them recommend somebody, because that kind of pass down, pass over, whatever you want to call it, is so much more catered to the individual. But limiting yourself to just that is also putting yourself in a corner, right? I think that the way my mind works is I like to research everything. And I think that nowadays everybody has that ability, right? You can use your phone, you can use your iPad, you can use your computer, anything that has internet. So if you're not doing that, you're really closing yourself off to opportunities and to learning about how best you can fit into the civilian sector. So it's really been a combination of everything. We like to do this omni-channel outreach where you better talk to your friends and family. You better talk to everybody you know that might be able to expand your thought process. But then you should also be looking on the internet. You should be looking on LinkedIn. You should be trying to take tests to see where your forte and your personality is, and what those tests are going to tell you pose the greatest impact for you as an individual, and then Google that, look that up. There should be no barrier to you reaching out to somebody. And I think it can be uncomfortable at first, right? I remember
Definitely
going through the transition and like, how do I reach out to this person? Like, I can only introduce myself so many ways before I just seem like a robot to myself. But as you start that process, it becomes easier because you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. And then eventually you get to the point where you feel like you can have a conversation with anybody, no matter what platform or medium you're using. And that's where you want to get to. So just, it gets easier, I guess, in a sense, the more you do it.
It gets easier. It is awkward at first. We all feel it. Everyone's felt it, but it gets easier with repetitions. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with a little bit of awkwardness.
Man, you said a ton of good stuff there, Kat. Obviously, like you put in a lot of time and effort and work into this. Like this isn't something that doesn't happen with one conversation. It's not going to happen from one reflection question. This takes time and effort, and it does feel awkward. There's definitely risk involved, right? You're risking maybe sounding foolish in your first cup of coffee, right? Like, oh, I want to be like Elon Musk. Okay, that's a little ambitious. Dial it back a bit, right? So there's kind of that, but to your point, it does get more comfortable because the more you spend time thinking about yourself, how you're wired, what makes you tick, the more comfortable you are because it's you. And so we're really encouraging people to take the time, just like how you did. You'd mentioned like reaching out to family and friends, which is highly encouraged, especially with this whole notion of 50 cups of coffee, right? Like start there, start with people you know, because that's a safe, I'm doing air quotes for listeners, safe cup of coffee. But then, you're going to get a little bit more maybe savvy or a little bit more confident in the language you're using. It doesn't sound so robotic. And then you're going to take a risk and start branching out. And then I loved how you talked about mentors. We refer to it in Vector Accelerator as boards of directors. And these are people that know you well. Like you're the common denominator. Everybody knows you. They might not know each other, but these are people like executives. They're established in their industry, career. And they're going to tell you, hey, you know that piece of broccoli in your teeth? You got something stuck there. They're going to be the ones that tell you what you need to hear and not what you necessarily want to hear because they want to see you succeed. And I think that's another really important piece to this. So I love how you broke it all down. You really painted a really clear image of what veterans should maybe consider as their first couple of steps moving forward into their transition. So thank you for that. I'm kind of curious, and this is go as vulnerable as you want, but about challenges, right? So we're all like you said it's a time of anxiety, whether you admit it or not. It's daunting, the feeling of what's next. What were some of the challenges that you feel you had to navigate as you were moving forward? Like certain circumstances that you feel like your trajectory was one way, and then now here's this new challenge, and oh my gosh, are we going to be okay? However you felt, like what were some of the challenges that you feel you had to go through and get past to move forward?
Oh my goodness. So I think one I get asked a lot is I flew helicopters when I was active duty, naval aviator. I don't fly helicopters right now. That's not, and when I was getting out, I knew that I didn't necessarily want to go fly for the airlines or get into another flying job. I wanted to learn a new skill and I wanted to challenge myself in a totally different avenue. And I think that tapping into like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Right. Which is a joke because I'm already grown up, but it's the same thing. Like, don't pigeonhole yourself thinking this is what I've always done. Now I have to grow on that because you're closing off so many opportunities. If you're still waking up in the morning and you're still breathing and you're able to stress out or get anxiety or laugh or do anything, feed your dog in the morning, you still have an opportunity to start a whole new career. You have interests that you haven't tapped into if you're leaving the military. A lot of people look to what we started with, right? Look backwards, look forwards. It doesn't mean I didn't use anything that I learned. Am I flying helicopters? No, but I will tell you, I fly this desk like a champion. And it's great.
Love
and
it.
I feel an impact out of it. But it has nothing to do with really what people looked at what I did for 12 years in the military and active duty to what I did now. And that, I think that's something that a lot of people transitioning out of the military struggle with. Like, what I learned in the military, yes, to fly, absolutely, it was great. I had a ball. But I learned so much more, and it took those people, those right folks and the right organizations to help me understand, what did I actually learn and how does that apply, and how's that going to make me happy and successful? So I think there's so many different pivotal moments and things that you have to manage going through. The one thing that you can't do is limit yourself. And you can't close doors as you're transitioning out because you're scared, or because it's outside what you've always done. If you do that, you lose opportunity. If an opportunity presents itself, at least explore it. The least you can do is have a conversation.
Yeah, that's such a great example of how on the surface does flying a helicopter, what does that have anything to do with fill in the blank, being in tech, being in HR, being in customer relationship management? And then you can look at every single MOS or rate. Well, what does shooting an artillery piece have to do with being in tech? What does being an admin chief have to do? I mean, there's so many examples of this, but you seamlessly did it, it would seem, and because you're actually doing it now. What were the one or two, or whatever comes to mind first, the biggest translatable skills or character traits that you have that were like, well, yeah, obviously from flying planes to this is an obvious bridge. Like, these are the things that you use.
I think this goes for hopefully everybody that's served in the military, but communication, right? Just like radio calls in a helicopter. The first radio call that I ever made, if my instructor is listening to this, I'm sorry. It was like I was having a conversation with my girlfriend in middle school. And that's okay, right? I look back at that and it makes me laugh, how atrocious it was. But I learned, and just the refinement of that process from the baby steps to the peak is what carries me. And now I'm the VP of customer experience. It's all about the experience, which is based on multiple mediums of communication, right? How do you engage? What are the memories you're creating? And I think the communication piece is so critical. And we learn many different types of communication. We learn how to be succinct. We know how to put the bottom line up front, right? You know your audience. You're briefing someone really high ranking officer, or you're briefing the new guy in the team. Know your audience and how to communicate with them. It's so critical. And when you get out of the military, you're going to find that that's a process that in the back of your mind, maybe you haven't even realized how much you have perfected that. Now it's your turn to go into an organization and to use your skill set to teach others, to bring teams together, to collaborate. And that is it's a glorious transformation to watch and to be a part of. And you're probably going to learn a lot more about communication that you did not learn in the military, but that's great, right? You want it to suck at first. You want to feel like you fell on a sword and like you had a radio call talking to your middle school best friend about NSYNC. Like, it's okay to start there. It makes it so much more glorious if you start and you just try it out and you fall on your face, and then you get up, and then years later you look back and you're like, wow, I learned that, and I didn't even focus on it. Just became innate and second nature. Those are the skill sets that you need to look at in the military that you took for granted that you were honing those skills. But now those are skills that are going to apply in any sector across all industries that you're going to go into outside of the military.
Yeah,
love they're that. Human universals, right?
Yeah, for sure. I remember, Kat, when our paths crossed for the first time, and learning about one of your strengths, natural talents is communication. And it's so fitting that that's what you brought up. And I love that story of development in the military, because you're right. You might have been exceptional in your career, whether you served 4 years, 10 years, or 30 years. You might have been like super well proficient, but then you have to learn some new things in a new environment, just like anybody else would. If you go from one command to the next command, you have to learn how that next command works. And same thing in a business, or when you move within a business. And so you have to learn but your ability to learn and adapt, knowing your strengths and talents, that's going to set you up for success. And so I love the fact that you've done this work. You've done the self-reflective work. You know it makes you tick, and you know some of your strengths, and so you relied on those to move forward. And we also know that NSYNC is on your personal playlist, so that's kind of cool. But here's one more question that I have for you as we start, focusing a little bit more on. And you gave some really good advice, but this is more about, I guess, your number one tip. And don't worry about, there's no right or wrong answer with this, but you basically gave some really good insight as far as, hey, reach out to people, do your research online. You gave a really good template. If you had to give one piece of advice of where to start first for veterans who are thinking about getting out, maybe they're in the middle of their term and they're just wondering, man, should I get out in 2 years? Should I get out? Like, what's some really good advice that you would like to give that you found successful? And again, there's no right or wrong answers here. It's just from your perspective, what you think would be helpful.
Yeah, I really do think that I've spoken about opportunities and taking every opportunity that you have. The detriment of doing that first and foremost would be that in the military, you know the pace of the military life, right? You could be on deployment 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for months on end. And what's going on back home with your family and with your house and with your animals and everything that's going on back home seems like it's on the back burner. You almost hit the pause button, but it doesn't pause, right? And that's a great thing and a detriment of being in the military, right? But when you're leaving the military, that is no longer the case. You are home, you are with your family, you are not beholden to the schedule of carriers moving or everything else that's going on that drives what the military operations are. It's your family. So before you go and take every single opportunity, you have to take a moment to pause and realize that your life is going to change. You need work-life balance. That does matter. You need to appreciate the people in your life, your husband, your kids, your dogs, your chickens, and what they provide and the sacrifice that they've made, because those things are going to change. Your work-life balance is now going to be paramount because you are no longer beholden to a deployment schedule and to an operational tempo. Your operational tempo is at home with your family who will be there with you for the rest of your life. And knowing that, spend some time looking intrinsically, speaking to those folks that are going to be with you for the rest of your life when you're at home, and making sure that you know what they need and what you need now that you know that your life is not going to be dictated by military movements. And if you don't do that first, right, look inside before you go reach out, every good mentor is going to ask you what you need in your life. Do you want work-life balance? Do you want to work with people you love? Is it dependent on how much money you make? All these things, right, that we learn. If you look inside and you look at your life and you talk to the people that are there, you'll have some avenue for what you can rack and stack getting out of the military. And that's so important because it's your life and we work to live, right? And outside the military, it's just different. And we need to make sure that we're doing what's right for us and for our family, because that's the rest of your life. And you're not going to go on any more deployments. You're not going to have your spouse pay all the bills and do all the doctor appointments and all that stuff. You're going to be a part of that now. So if you don't think about that, it's gonna catch up to you.
Kat, did you have an actual planned break in employment in terms of going off active duty and into your next opportunity?
I got out on a Friday and I started on a Monday. That was my plan.
Sounds like maybe you're offering that taking a break would be highly advantageous because the opportunity wasn't necessarily afforded to you and you could see the opportunities available.
Yeah, I had some really great people that helped me get to where I was today and helped me do that. I think whether you do it on a break right after you leave active duty, I would say months before you leave active duty and that life change happens, forecast out, right? And spend some time building up to that knowledge point where you're self-aware and you know some idea of what you're stepping out of and what you're stepping into. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take a 6-month hiatus and go into the mountains and talk to squirrels or whatever you want to do. But there has to be a process for that. And it has to start with the individual that's getting out of the military and that reflection and assessment.
When did you go through this program, Kat? You went through Honor Foundation. How many months before you finished?
I think I finished around Halloween, end of October, the year prior. So maybe 6 months, 7 months prior.
Yeah. And so I think for those that are listening, it is nice if you can bake it in, maybe some time off, maybe to unwind from your work. But I've known Kat for at least 2.5, almost 3 years now, and I don't think you sleep. Honestly, I think you're just kind of moved. You just like you are literally flying your desk right now, and I can see the clouds behind you while you're juggling plates off camera. I mean, you are constantly moving and grinding, and so I think when we talk about time, it could be literally taking a knee and just kind of pausing to reflect, and maybe that is escaping on a sabbatical. We've seen veterans do that, but I think that's great for them, right? But for you, it's like, no, I'm going to take time, and it's going to be positioned 6 months out, 9 months out, where you're the topic of interest. It's not anything else. And I love how you just intuitively went to priorities. Prioritize what's most important. And guess what? That's the first chapter in this program. Mm-hmm. We really want veterans to figure out what is most important to you. Because you're right. We're not beholden to our government's interests anymore. God bless America. But I've done my time. Now it's husband time, mama time, my dog's time. And if you don't have a family and don't have pets, that's fine. It's you time. You're the priority. So I love how you just intuitively went there. Awesome, solid advice. Man, this has been really good, Kat. So thank you so much for spending the time with us. Just want to give a shout out to you and the work that you're doing. And you're also bringing in other veterans alongside you in your effort, which is really cool. If people wanted to like, hey, Kat, how do I find you, to learn more about what you're doing? How would people, I guess, seek you out, if they're interested?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on social media platforms, but I would say for this reason, please reach me on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
Yeah, Kathleen Cox.
There you go.
I'm the only one, but I'm pretty sure I'm not.
Yeah. Well, once they put in Lieutenant Commander Navy SEAL team, they're going to be the only one. There's only one. I'm sorry. There can only be one. And so just thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and share your insights.
No, this is awesome.
I guarantee you're helping a lot of people. Sorry.
No, you guys are helping a lot of people, and I'm just here along for the ride and hoping that I can participate. And I wish every transitioning veteran the best of luck, and keep your opportunities open and reach out if you need anything.
That's awesome. All right, folks. So, transitioning from the military to civilian life, as you've heard in our discussion, is unlike any other. And so, you're probably going to find a career, but we really want you to find a career that is fulfilling, where you feel that you're able to show up as the best version of you and really pour into that next chapter. But what we've also figured out is that it's better to do it with others. So don't do this alone. So we want to invite our guests to head over to vectoraccelerator.org, where you can download our transition checklist and/or enroll in Vector Accelerator's self-guided virtual course. And this program is designed to accelerate your journey to clarity, conviction, and confidence. Take care, everyone.